Hello everyone, it's me, Ariel. I hope you're having a good day today. So we're gonna make a mermaid painting today. I hope you're excited. So I have mine all ready and drawn out. So while we wait for some more friends, let's go over some of the supplies that we're gonna need to start with. So you're gonna need a canvas or a piece of paper. If you don't have one, you could still participate if you don't have a canvas, so that's fine. You want it to be an 8 by 10, which is about the size of a piece of paper, or your canvas can be a little bit bigger, okay? I'm using an 8 by 10 today. Again, that's about the size of a paper. So we're gonna need that. If you plan on using paint, I'm using what's called acrylic paint. So you're gonna need some paint, and we'll go over those colors later. You're also going to need a pencil with a really good eraser to start, because we're gonna draw a mermaid first with pencil before we do any painting, okay? So for now, all you need is a canvas or a piece of paper and a pencil with a really good eraser. And then we'll go over the rest of our supplies later, okay? If you don't have paint, you can use crayons, colored pencils, markers. Those work great too. So what's gonna happen is you're gonna do it in pencil, and I'm gonna trace all the different steps in black marker so you can see them better. So try not to go ahead, try to stay with me. Okay, if you tune in late or I'm going a little too fast for you, what I recommend is to wait until this is done. It's going to get saved in the group, and I'll remind you guys where that's going to be later. Again, if I'm moving too quickly or you tune in halfway, I don't want you to rush through it. I just recommend you probably just wait till I'm done and then go back and watch the video, and you can pause it and do it at your own pace, okay? Okay, are you guys ready? So get your canvas, your paper, and your pencil, and a really good eraser. And it's okay if you erase, because I did some erasing too, okay? So we're going to start, hi Hadley, we're going to start in the middle of our canvas. So when I say the word canvas, that means paper too, okay? So we're going to find the middle. So take your finger and try to find the middle of your canvas, okay? And because that's where we're going to start. So find the middle first. We're going to start with a mermaid's shells, okay? Hi, Olivia. So cute. Oh, thank you. So again, we're going to start with the shells, and Nora, hello to Nora too. So find the middle, and we're going to make 2 sideways ovals that touch in the middle. So I'm going to trace them first, and then I'm going to show it to you, and then you're going to copy, okay? Okay. So again, middle of the canvas, so find that first, and then right here, make 2 sideways ovals that touch in the middle. Those are going to be the mermaid shells. Okay, so after you do that, you're going to make a line through the middle of your ovals. And then if you have room, you're going to make 2 more lines like this. So I started by making a line through the middle of my oval, and then I made 2 slanted lines on each side. So now it looks more like a shell. So you're going to do that with your pencil. And now we're going to start working on the mermaid's body. So we're going to make 2 straight lines for the sides of her belly. Okay? So 2 straight lines for the sides of her belly. So you're only going to copy what I do in marker, okay? So right there. Also, this one is very special because you guys are going to get a story time with me too. We're going to give our background some time to dry, or our mermaid. And while we're letting part of our painting dry, I'm going to read to you a story. So you get 2 things, a painting and a story. Okay, so we just finished drawing the 2 lines for the side of the mermaid's body right here and right here. Okay, now we're going to make a V shape for the front of the tail. So you're going to connect these two by making a V shape. Okay, so I just traced it so you can see it better. So connect those two lines together by making like a V shape for the front of the tail. Okay. And don't forget to give your mermaid a little belly button. So just make a little dot where her belly button would be. Give her a little belly button. Okay. Now we're going to start working on the top of the tail. So we're only going to do a little bit of the tail at one time, okay? So for the top of the tail, we're going to make 2 lines down, and they're not straight lines. If you look closely, they kind of curve a tiny bit. So they're not super straight. So they come down, but they're not super straight. They're a little bit curvy. And then the next thing we're going to do is on this side, we're going to curl up for the end of the tail. So we're going to go down a little bit more. So on this side, remember we just made this, and then we're going to kind of curl up. Don't go too high though, okay? So just curl up just a little bit. Now, keep in mind when you're doing the rest of the tail, so a mermaid tail starts off big and then it gets smaller as we get close to the end, okay? So remember, it starts off big, and then as you get closer to the end of the tail, it gets smaller, okay? So now we're going to do the other side. Okay, perfect. So then I went to the other side of my tail, or her tail, I should say. And you're going to curl this way and attach it to the end. Do you see how the tail got smaller?
Daddy, I'm sorry. I just forgot. As a result of your careless behavior, the entire celebration was very much ruined.
Okay. So when we're done with that, what we're going to do is we're going to make a double line right here. So we're going to go back under that V shape.
But it wasn't her fault. First, the shirt is... Yeah.
And we're going to make another line right underneath, right here. So back to that V shape right under the belly button, and then kind of just trace around the bottom of it. Okay, good. Now we're going to work on the end of the tail. Okay. So we're going to do this side first. It kind of looks like you're making a leaf shape. If you've ever drawn a leaf before, it looks very similar. So you're starting at the end of the tail, and you're making kind of like a sideways leaf shape. So do that on one side. And then you're going to do the same thing, but make sure they're attached. Make another sideways leaf shape attached to that one. Okay? So I'm going to go back and trace the second one, and then I'll hold it up for you to look at. Okay? There we go. So 2 sideways leaf shapes that touch in the middle. So I'm going to give you a little while to take a look at that and catch up if you're falling behind. If you joined us late, if you can catch up, that's fine. But if you can't, or I'm going too fast for you, I just recommend that you wait until we're done. This video is going to get saved in the group. You can go back anytime and do this, and that way you can pause it and do it at your own pace, okay? Perfect. So now that we're all done with the tail, we're going to start working on the arms, okay? So your arms might be a little bit different than mine, depending on how high or how low you did your tail. So I'm going to start by drawing the bottom of both my arms. Yours might be in a different spot, again, because of where your tail is, okay? So I'm starting like somewhere around the middle of the shell, and I'm making a line for the bottom of the arm, okay? And then I'm making another line, so again, I'm starting on the other shell, and I'm making another line for the bottom of this arm. So you can make both arms go out to the side if you'd like. I'm making this arm go down a little bit, and this one is like right above the tail. So it doesn't matter what direction the arms are going in. So we're just starting at the shells and making a line for the bottom of both arms. Okay, now we're going to do the top of the arms, okay? So right above those lines, you're going to make another line for the top of the arms, right here and right here. So line it up, just like that, and just make another line right above it for the top of the arms. Now, if you notice, the hands that I drew are very, very simple. I just did that because it's going to be much easier to paint around them. If you want to do fingers, you can. I'm just going to do like a mitten shape just because it's easier to paint. So you can do the same shape as me, or you can draw 5 fingers. It's just going to be harder to paint around them. So I'm just tracing the hand shapes that I have. Okay. So I just made the hands look like mittens. And then if you want to, you can actually go back and you can make like little lines. You can make like little lines inside the mitten shapes. So then it kind of looks like fingers, and it'll be much easier to paint around that way. So I started off again with the hands, just making like a mitten shape. And then I just put a couple of lines inside to kind of make it look more like fingers. Okay. Now the hard part is going to be the shoulders. So I want you to take your time with this part, okay? So you've got your arms, and shoulders are round, right? So they're curvy. So we're going to give me some shoulders right here and right here. And how you're going to know how long to make them is the neck, okay? So you're going to leave a little space where the neck is going to go. So you don't want to attach these lines. See how these 2 lines on the shoulders are not touching? Because we need to leave a little tiny bit of space in between for a neck. You don't want to leave too much space because then your mermaid will have a really big neck. You want a tiny little neck. Okay, so curvy lines that attach to the top of the arms, and then you're going to leave a little space in between them to add a tiny neck. Okay, so work on your shoulders. Perfect. Okay, if you're done with your shoulders, we're going to move on. We're going to make 2 short lines for the neck. Okay, so 2 short lines for a neck. And then we get to work on the best part, her face. That part's next. So for her face, you're going to make an oval, a U shape, okay? So you're going to start with a big U shape. Make sure that you don't make her head too small or too big. Make sure the size of your U shape for her face goes with the size of her body. If you're not sure, ask one of your adult helpers and they'll help you with this part, okay? So we're gonna make a U shape for her face. I'll trace that and you can see. Okay. So again, make a U shape for her face. Make sure that it's big enough to give her eyes and lips. You don't want to make her face too small. So a nice big U shape that goes with the rest of her body for her face. Okay, after we do that, we're going to give her some lips. So for the lips, I like to start by drawing a straight line for the middle of the lips. See the black line? So I'm going to start by doing a straight line for the middle of the lips. And then I'm going to do a little M shape for the top lip. So it's going to look like the letter M. So right above that line, I'm going to make a little M shape for that top lip. And then the bottom lip is really easy. The bottom lip is just going to be a curvy line. Okay? So just a curvy line for the bottom lip. Now because this mermaid is so small, I'm going to make her have closed eyes. If you're doing this with marker or crayon, it might be easier to do open eyes. But with a paint, it's going to be very difficult because it's so small. It's going to be really hard to paint neatly. It might end up looking kind of messy. So because we're using paint today and our mermaid is so small, I'm going to recommend to do the closed eyes like I did. So for that, what you're going to do is you're going to make two lines.
It's really something.
And then because the eyes are closed, you're going to do eyelashes on the bottom of the line and not on top of the line. Because look, when you close your eyes, your eyelashes point down. Okay? And when you open your eyelashes go up. So because her eyes are closed, we're going to make the eyelashes at the bottom of that line. Okay? So the eyelashes point down. Now in this particular drawing, they didn't give her a nose. I'm not going to give her a full nose. You can actually leave her like this. They didn't give her a nose at all. But if you wanted to do maybe two little dots for her where her nostrils would go, you can do that. So see if you like it this way. And then I'm going to make the two little dots just so you can see if you want to add that. So you could do either way, without the nose showing, or I'm going to make two dots so you can see if you like it, okay? Okay? So I added two little dots. You don't have to do this. Decide which way you like it better. But we're keeping it very simple. So if you like that, you can do two little dots for where her nose would be, or you could leave it without a nose, and that's how this was drawn out. Okay, good. So when you're done drawing her face, we're going to move on to the top of her hair. So you're going to leave a little space above her eyes so she has a forehead, and then we're just going to connect two curvy lines. So leave a little space so she has a forehead, and then make two curvy lines that connect, just like that. Now we're not going to draw her hair. We're just going to paint it later with our paintbrush. So we're not drawing any hair, because what's going to happen is when we do our background, we're going to end up painting over it anyway. It's going to be really difficult to paint around it. It'll look a lot nicer if we just paint the hair over the background. It'll look better, okay? So we're not drawing any hair. We're just drawing the top of her head, where the hairline would go, okay? So if you'd like to add some more things, what you can do is you can add a starfish at the bottom. So you just start off by drawing a regular star, and then I went back and I made, instead of it being really pointy like a regular star, I just rounded off the edges or the points so they're more round and not pointy. So down in the corner at the bottom, I drew a star, and then I went back and I rounded off the edges so they're not super pointy. So it looks more like a starfish. So let me trace that for you. Okay. So it still kind of looks like a star, but you see how instead of being pointy at the ends, it's round. So that's how you make a starfish. Okay. Perfect. Now in the picture, there was some seaweed. We're just going to paint the seaweed later over the water. So I'm not going to draw the seaweed right now, okay? So the right way to do this painting, I'm going to put it down for a quick second. The right way to do this painting would be to paint the whole background first and then let it dry. We wouldn't be able to paint our mermaid until our background is completely dry, and that might take a long time, and we're doing this live, and we don't want to be on here for 2 hours, because ultimately it would take a while to let it dry, because everyone uses a different amount of paint. So we are going to change the way we're going to do this painting because of the time that we have. So instead of painting the whole background like over the mermaid, like you would normally do, what we're going to do first is we're going to do parts of the mermaid, and then we're going to do our background. And then while the background is drying, we're going to read a story. You can have a snack or something and a drink while I'm reading the story. That's only going to take maybe like 10 minutes. I think it's going to be like 2 stories. And then we'll go back and we'll finish our mermaid once most of the background is dry, okay? Keep in mind, when it comes to paint, there's a saying, it's like less is more. We can use that saying in a lot of things, but I'm going to relate that to the paint today. You don't want to use a lot of paint. If you use too much paint, it's not going to dry. And if your paint is not dry yet, if you try to put another color next to it, they might mix together and smudge, okay? So when we're doing anything in this painting, you just want to use a little bit of paint. And if you have any globs, you always want to spread them out. And if there's too much, take it off and wipe it on your plate. If you need help, your adults can help you with this part, okay? So what we're going to do is we're going to grab some colors that we're going to start with. We're going to start with her skin, okay? So we're going to try to make the skin kind of like my color. So we're going to try to make like a very light peach color. So in order to do that, you're going to need white and a tiny bit of orange. So if you have that, or peach. So peach if you're doing with crayons or whatever, or light orange. But if you're doing the paint, you're going to need white paint and a tiny bit of orange. And we're going to add some orange to the white to make a light peachy color, okay? So you're going to need your plate. You're going to need a napkin or a paper towel to dry your brush, okay? You're going to need 2 size brushes. Hopefully you have a big brush. If you do not have a big brush, it's going to take you a very long time to do your background. So if you have a bigger one, that would be great. But you definitely need a small brush, okay? So this is my brush. It's kind of flat, okay? So that's one size that I'm going to be using. I'm going to dry the other one off so I can show you. And then this is my other brush, okay? So you can see the size of that one. So hopefully you have something similar. They don't have to be exactly like my brushes. So I have a small brush, and then I have a bigger brush that I can use to fill in my background a little bit quicker around the outside of my mermaid, okay? So we're going to start with our small brush. We're going to put some white paint and orange paint in the plates if you haven't done that already. Okay. You want to make sure that your small brush is nice and dry. You don't want to put a wet brush into this kind of paint. So make sure you dry your brush on your paper towel. So you're going to take a little bit of orange. Let's see if I can show you without making a mess. I'm going to take a little bit of orange into my white, and I'm going to mix it all together. So a little orange into the white until I get a peachy color. So I don't know if you can see that. You'll see it better when it's on the canvas. Okay, so I'm mixing a little bit more. There we go. You can start to see it's turning like a peachy color now. So when you're happy with that color, you're going to start painting your mermaid. I'm going to start by painting her arms. Okay. So I'm going to put this a little bit closer. So with that peachy color that we just made, I'm going to start by painting both of her arms and her hands. Can you see the color now? I'm going to paint around her shells. Okay. Painted her arms, her hands. I'm going to paint her neck. I'm going to go paint her face. So for her face, it's really easy because you can actually paint right over her eyes because we can fix that later with markers, okay? So very carefully. You're just going to paint her face. You can go right over her eyes. And if you made the little dots for the nose, you can do that too. I'm just painting around her mouth. I'm not painting over her mouth. But I did paint over her eyes and her nose, and I went really careful, okay? Now I'm going to paint over her belly and her belly button. So not the tail and not the shells. I'm going really slow around those things. So I'm just painting her belly, right over her belly button. Just like that. So those are the things that I'm doing with this color. So take a quick look at that. Make sure that you do all those things. Under the Sea is on in the background. I couldn't help dance, sorry. Okay. So the next thing we're going to paint when you're done with doing her face, her arms, and her belly, we're going to paint our starfish. So I'm going to make my starfish orange. So since we already have orange on our plates, it's going to be pretty easy. So I'm just going to rinse my brush really quick and dry it. And then I'm going to paint my starfish orange. So I'm just going to put that down so it's easier for me to rinse. And I'm going to grab some orange paint and I'm going to paint my entire starfish. See if I can tip this forward a little bit. So I'm making my starfish orange. Okay, good. Oh, my painting's getting stuck on my hair. So when you're done with that, you're going to rinse and dry your brush, okay? And what we're going to do now is we're going to start painting our background next, okay? We're going to do the tail and the shells and the hair later after our background is dry, okay? So what you're going to need after you do the skin and the starfish is you're going to need light blue paint. We're going to add different colors of blue later, but for now we're going to need light blue paint, and let me show you what that looks like. So you want to start with a color that looks like this. If you don't have this blue, guess what? You can just take a darker blue that you have and add white paint. So blue and white till you get a nice light blue color, okay? So that's going to be our color for the background. So if you don't already have a color that looks like this, or you don't have enough, just take regular blue. Like for instance, if you have a blue that looks more like this, you're going to take this blue and we're going to add white. We want our background to be a nice light blue. So this is too dark, okay? So add white. But since I already have light blue, I'm just going to put some in my plate. So you're going to start by using your small brush. So after you're done painting your starfish orange, make sure you rinse and dry your small brush. And I always like to trace around things to make sure they're nice and neat, and that way I don't accidentally paint them with a big brush, okay? So what we're going to do before we start painting the rest of our background is we're going to start by tracing around our mermaid with our light blue, okay? So small brush, make sure it's dry, and I'm going to very carefully start painting around my mermaid, the whole mermaid. Try not to paint her by accident, okay? So go nice and slow with your light blue and start very carefully tracing around your mermaid. Okay? Take your time with this part. Again, if I go too fast with the background, you guys can finish the background up while I'm reading the story. So I'm going to do my background, but if you're not done, that's okay. While I'm reading the story, you guys can work on your background. So don't rush. We just don't want to take too long on our background because we want it to dry while I'm reading the story too, okay? And you want to make sure you don't add too much paint. So I'm just tracing around the entire mermaid with light blue paint and a small brush first. So this little section that's in between her body and her tail is part of the water. Do you see this little section here? So because that section is so small, I'm actually going to fill that in with my small brush. Okay. So the little section in between her tail and her body, I'm actually going to fill that in. And it kind of looks like her tail isn't attached anymore. We can fix that later. I'm going to retrace everything in marker later. So, okay. So I'm going to finish tracing her body. So we're just tracing. You're also going to trace the top of her head. I know that seems really strange, but we want to actually see some of the water showing through her hair later, because then it looks more realistic, like the mermaid's actually in the water. So you're tracing all the way around, okay? When you're done doing this, if you made a starfish, you're also very carefully going to trace around your starfish as well. So trace around your starfish with the same blue. See, I'm just tracing. Perfect. So I traced around my whole mermaid and my starfish with my light blue and my small brush. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my brush and I'm going to put it in the water, because you never want to leave a brush with paint sitting on the table to dry. Always put your brush into the water when you're done using it, okay? Now I'm going to take my big brush and I want to make sure that it's not too wet. If it's too wet, you're going to dry your big brush on your paper towel. You want your bristles to be damp. That means it's a tiny bit wet, but you don't want any water dripping from them. If there's water dripping from your brush, you need to dry it off first. So your bristles shouldn't be dry but they should be just a little bit wet, okay? So I'm going to dip the big brush into my light blue paint, and I'm going to start painting the rest of my canvas. So all of this around my mermaid and around my starfish needs to be light blue. So I'm starting at the top. I'm trying not to get paint in my hair. So you see, because we painted around our mermaid, we won't accidentally paint her with a big brush, hopefully. So we don't have to go as close to her with this big brush since we traced around her already. So I'm just painting the rest of my painting with this light blue. We're going to add some different blue to it later. Okay, I ran out of paint, so I'm going to add more paint in my plate, but this is all you're doing right now. So again, I'm just filling in the whole background with light blue paint. Really careful when I get close to my starfish or the mermaid. See, I'll do this side. Painting upside down isn't as easy as it looks. But it can definitely be done. Okay, see, I'm almost done. If you're not caught up to me, that's perfectly fine. Like I said, you can finish your background while I'm reading the story in a few minutes. Okay. Almost done. I have like a little spot at the bottom around my starfish. Okay, so let me put my brush in the water and show you what I did. So I painted the whole background with my light blue. So what we're going to do now is you're going to keep working on your background if you're not done, but make sure, and adults, if you're helping, just make sure when they're done with their background that there are no big globs of paint. If there are, just take that big brush and kind of swipe some of them off and wipe it off the canvas. So that way there's not tons of paint. So I'm going to put this down, okay? So you're not going to be able to see it for a little while. So take a good look at that, because this is what you want to be doing right now. I'm going to read you guys a story while we let our background dry, okay? So if you want to go grab a quick snack, if you're allowed, ask your mom or dad or whoever's with you if you can get like maybe a quick snack or a drink while I read the story. If not, finish up your background while I read. I have my water. Okay. So I have this really cool book, and it's called 5-Minute Princess Stories. So I'm going to put the TV down. There we go. And there's a couple of stories in here about me, actually. So let me find the first one. And again, we're just listening to a story while we let our background dry a little bit. And then we're going to go back and finish. Perfect. So the story that I'm going to read to you is The Little Mermaid, A Special Song, okay? So it's kind of hard for me to read like upside down like this. So I'm going to read it and then I'll show you guys the pictures. Is that okay? Perfect. May I have your attention, please? Sebastian called. The crab tapped his baton on a podium. King Triton's birthday was in a couple of days, and the court musicians were planning a special performance. Triton's daughter, Ariel, that's me, would sing while the orchestra played a brand new tune. Sebastian wanted the concert to be spectacular, but they still had a lot of work to do. So here's a picture of Sebastian with his baton. The crab raised his baton, and the musicians began to play. Beautiful music filled the sea until, clank. Who did that? Sebastian demanded. I did, a young mermaid named Coral replied quietly. The best way to play the cymbals is to hold on to them. Now, if there are no more interruptions, Sebastian said grumpily, let's continue. The rehearsal went from bad to worse. Coral dropped her cymbal a second time, clank. Then she tripped and landed on top of a kettle drum. As Ariel watched, Sebastian threw down his baton. Rehearsal is over, the crab yelled and stormed off. So it looks like this little mermaid in the pink, that's Coral. And I guess she's a little clumsy, poor thing. She keeps dropping all the instruments. And Sebastian's getting a little upset. Ariel helped Coral up. Don't mind, Sebastian. I'll never be able to get this song right, let alone perfect, Coral said sadly. Don't worry about it, Ariel said. The only thing I'm perfect at is making Sebastian mad. You should have seen his face the last time I went to the surface. You've been to the surface? Coral asked, amazed. You must be the bravest mermaid ever. It's just something I like to do, Ariel said. I'm always gathering treasures. Would you like to see my collection? I'd love to, Coral exclaimed. The two mermaids swam to Ariel's grotto. Make yourself at home, Ariel told Coral when they arrived. Flounder the fish was there. He waved a fin at them. The young mermaids swam around, examining jewelry and shiny trinkets. Where did you find all of this? Coral asked as she put a strand of pearls. I found some of it in a sunken ship, replied Ariel. You've been inside a sunken ship? Coral said with a gasp. Weren't you scared? Of course not. Were you, Flounder? Ariel teased. Nothing to it, the fish fibbed. So what are we waiting for? Ariel asked. Let's go. Coral and Flounder trailed behind Ariel. Soon they arrived at a ship that had sunk to the ocean floor. Let's see what's in there, Ariel urged. Her friends followed her through a large porthole. Inside the ship, Ariel found an old steamer trunk. Look at this, she cried, holding up a purple parasol. And this, Coral exclaimed, picking up a fancy lampshade. I wonder what it's for. My friend Scuttle can tell us, Ariel said. Follow me. Where are we going? Coral asked Flounder. To the surface, he replied matter-of-factly. So I guess we're going to the surface. So if you just tuned in, we're just reading a story to pass the time so our background can dry. Soon the friends arrived at the surface. Scuttle the seagull examined their treasures. This is a twerfilifer, he said, looking at Coral's lampshade. It's what human ladies wear when they're going somewhere important. Before long, the friends had to leave. As they headed home, Coral asked Ariel if she could keep the Twirfalurfer at the grotto. It might get broken at home, she explained. Of course, Ariel agreed. The grotto is my secret place, and it can be yours too. A few days later, as Ariel swam toward the grotto, she heard someone singing. The voice was strong and clear, but sweet too. When Ariel arrived, she saw her new friend. Coral, I didn't know you had such a lovely voice. You should be singing in the concert, not playing the cymbals. The little blonde mermaid shrugged. It's just like singing to myself, she explained. I've never actually performed. The next day at rehearsal, Sebastian made Ariel the orchestra practice over and over, but something always seemed to go wrong. The big day is tomorrow, the crab said, fretting. This concert needs to be fit for a king, King Triton to be exact. Let's try it again. So they did. The rehearsal went on and on. By the end of the afternoon, everyone was tired. See you tomorrow, Ariel said. Her voice was raspy. On the day of the concert, Ariel could only whisper. She had lost her voice. Luckily, she knew who could take her place. Me? Coral said when the princess asked her. But I can't. You must, Sebastian insisted. Otherwise, King Triton's birthday celebration will be ruined. I can't sing in front of a crowd of merpeople, Coral said, pleading. Sure you can, Flounder said. Coral thought about how she had visited the sunken ship and gone to the surface, things she had never thought she could do, all because of Ariel. Now, her new friend was counting on her. All right, Coral said slowly, I'll do it. That night, when Coral peeked out from backstage, she nearly fainted. The entire kingdom was there, including her parents and her brothers and sisters. King Triton and Ariel sat in the royal box. When it was time, Coral took a deep breath and swam on stage. As the orchestra started playing, she sang softly, but as she went on, Coral's voice got louder. Before she knew it, the concert was over, and the audience began to clap and cheer. Coral, said Sebastian, smiling, you can give away your cymbals. From now on, you're going to be the court singer. So it looks like Coral did a great job and everyone loved her singing. After the show, Ariel went to congratulate with her friend. She found Coral with her family. I didn't know you could sing like that, one of Coral's sisters exclaimed. No one ever would have known if it wasn't for Ariel, replied Coral. She believed in me. Ariel still couldn't speak, but she gave Coral a big hug. It had been a wonderful evening. There you go. The end. Okay. So let's go check on our background and see how it's doing. Now it's probably still going to be a little bit wet, but it's a lot drier than it was before. And hopefully you've all finished your background by now, because we're going to add some more shades of blue to our background, okay? And then we might have to read another short story in between. We'll see what happens, okay? So the first color we used for our background was a light blue. Now what we're going to do is we're going to add some different shades of blue. So we're going to start with a darker blue, okay? So if you have dark blue, that's great. You're going to do that. And I'm going to try to open it. It's really hard to open. So just a little bit in your plate. You don't need too much. Perfect. Actually, you know what? I think I want to do the seaweed first. So if you put the blue in your plate, that's fine. Just leave it there for now. I think I want to do one more thing before we do the blue. So if you have green paint, I want you to grab some green paint. Any shade of green is fine. So any shade of green that you have. Get your small brush and make sure it's clean and dry. So small brush. We're all done with our big brush. We're not going to use our big brush anymore. So small brush, clean and dry. We're going to go to some green, okay? We're going to add some seaweed. So we have our starfish on this side. And on the opposite side, we're going to grab some, do some seaweed. So green paint. You're going to make all different sizes. So you're going to start all the way at the bottom. And you're going to make a wavy line. Just like that, okay? And then I'm going to make this one a little bit shorter. And then I'm going to make this one a little bit taller. So in the picture, they only had 3. But if you really want to, you can fill up the whole bottom of your painting with different size seaweed, okay? So I think I'm going to do that actually. So you can do just 3 like I did there. But I kind of like the seaweed on the bottom. So I'm going to continue to add the seaweed, and they're just curvy green lines at the bottom of my painting. It looks nicer if you make them different sizes. Perfect. So I just filled in the entire bottom with some seaweed. If you have room, like you can add one on the side of your starfish. So I have like a tiny bit of room on the side of my starfish. So I'm just going to add a tall one right there. Okay. Perfect. So again, you don't have to do a whole bunch like I did, but at least do 3 over to this side so it's not so plain. So we're going to do that with our green paint. So let me put my brush down and I'll hold this up for you. Again, Jenna, just like any of the other paintings, it doesn't matter if you don't have paint. When I say paint, you could use a marker, a crayon, you could use colored pencils. It doesn't matter, honey. Perfect. So again, whenever I say paint, if you don't have paint, I'm just referring to whatever you're using. Like I said, like a marker, colored pencil, and crayon. That works too. Just like when I say canvas, if you don't have a canvas, that means paper too, okay? So just draw some seaweed at the bottom with some green, whatever you're using. So now we're going to go back to our blue, our darker blue. It has to be a darker blue than what you did for your background. So I'm going to put this down. I'm going to clean and dry my brush. Okay. And we need to make sure that these lines that we're going to make are going this way. So the seaweed went up. Now the water is going to go in the opposite direction. So I'm going to take some blue, a darker blue, and I'm going to start making wavy lines, and you want them to be all different lengths and make sure they're going in this direction, okay? So make some wavy lines going in this direction, all different sizes, all around her body, okay? So it looks more like water. So again, take any shade of darker blue and make some wavy lines going in this direction. Make them all different sizes, okay? Okay, perfect. When you're done doing the blue waves, we're going to go to some white paint. We're going to add a little bit of white in there. Not too much though, okay? So when you're done doing the blue waves, grab some white paint. I'm going to clean my brush again. Perfect. So clean, dry brush, and now I'm grabbing some white paint, and I'm doing the same thing. But I'm not going to do as many white ones as I did blue. I'm only going to do a few in the white color. So some wavy white lines. Again, not too many though. So less white than blue. And make those different sizes too. Perfect. And maybe one up here. Okay. So I made some blue squiggles and some white squiggles. Just like that. Now when you're done doing the white and blue, what we're going to do next is we're going to decide on what color we're going to make the shells and what color we're going to make the tail, okay? So I'm going to make this mermaid try to look like me. So I'm going to give my mermaid purple shells and a green tail. So you're going to pick any colors you want, okay? Hi, Joan. I'm kind of teaching the painting right now, sweetheart, okay? So we're going to pick a color for the shells, and then we're going to do the tail, okay? So we're going to whatever color you want. I'm going to do purple. So I'm going to grab some purple. Let me find my purple paint. Perfect. So you don't need a lot because the shells are really, really tiny. So you don't need a lot of paint. So pick up whatever color you want your shells to be. Get your small brush. Make sure that it's nice and clean and dry. Perfect. And we're just going to paint your shells. Your pencils, you know those little lines that we made in our shells? They might get covered because they're in pencil, but just try to remember what they look like. And later with marker, once everything is dry, you can kind of redraw them, okay? So just paint your shells. You're going to cover those pencil lines for now. And then later, when your mermaid is completely dry, you can go back with a marker like I'm going to do, and you can put those lines back because they're really easy to remember how to do. Okay? So paint the shells any color you want. Now for my tail, I am going to make my tail green, but I'm going to make it 2 shades of green. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to make, let me see. I'm going to make this a darker green, I think. And then I'm going to make this part in here a light green. And then the end. So I'm going to make this the fins. And the part around the waist, I'm going to make them, I think, a light green. And then I'm going to do this a darker green. So let me do that. So I'm actually just going to use the green from my seaweed. So I'm going to try to rinse and dry with my left hand. Perfect. So you can use any colors you want for your tail. I'm going to do mine 2 shades of green. You can do your tail all the same color. You can do 2 colors like I'm doing. So just paint your tail. There we go. So I painted that around the waist. And then I'm going to paint the fin the same color. Okay, just like that. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to add a little bit of black. If you don't have dark green, to make any color darker, you just add a teeny tiny bit of black to any color, and that will make it a little bit darker. But when I say teeny tiny, I mean teeny tiny. So I'm going to add a teeny tiny bit of black to the green that I have to make a darker green. And again, you guys are using any color that you want. Actually, can you grab me some black, please? Thank you. So I'm going to put a little bit of black. I wasn't planning on using black, but I'm just going to use the black to make my green darker. Perfect. There we go. So by adding black to this green that I already had, I made a darker green. I'm just going to color in the bottom of the tail. And again, you're using any colors you want for the shells and the tail. Paint them however you'd like. Okay. I think I got it all. It's kind of hard to see when I'm painting upside down. Did I miss something on the bottom? Yep, I missed a little spot. There we go. Perfect. All right, so I think I got it all. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to rinse my brush. And I'm going to decide what color I want the lips to be. So since I'm trying to make this look like me, we're going to give the mermaid some red lips. You can do pink lips if you want. You can do any color lips. Because lipstick comes in a lot of colors now, doesn't it? But just be very careful because the lips are really, really small. So whatever color you choose for the lips, just make sure you only put like a little dot on your paintbrush, okay? So I'm going to put this down so I can put some red paint in my plate. And then I'll hold it back up again, I promise. Perfect. So again, I'm making sure that my brush is very clean and dry. And then I'm just going to put a tiny bit, because I'm just doing the lips. So I'm just putting a tiny bit. Can you see how little? Tiny bit of paint. And then I'm going to very carefully paint the lips. And if you end up losing the shape of your lips, once again, when this is all completely dry, you're going to take a black marker, okay? And you're just going to trace the lips with marker. So it's pretty much like drawing it all over again. Whatever we did in pencil, when all this is dry, you're just going to kind of draw it over again in marker, okay? Very good. So now when you're done, we're going to decide on what color hair your mermaid is going to be, okay? Or have, not be. So I'm going to do mine red. You can make your mermaid hair any color you'd like, okay? So pick a color. I probably wouldn't pick blue just because there's already so much blue going on, okay? So you can pick a color. If the blue lines and white lines in your background are still really, really wet, you might want to wait a little while for this part, okay? But mine are kind of dry, but if they're not too dry on yours, like those blue and white, you might want to wait a little while before you do the hair. But mine are dry, so I'm going to go on. And I'm going to do my hair red. So I'm going to start by tracing the top of my head. So I'm just tracing the top of my head, just like that. And then I'm going to extend those lines by making it wavy. Because when you swim in the ocean, your hair moves around. So I'm going to just make the hair kind of wavy, like that. There we go. And you want to make the hair nice and long. So I know it looks a little weird like that, but we're going to give her a lot more hair, okay? So we've got the bangs, and then those long hairs going down, okay? And then we're going to kind of create the top of the head a little bit. So right above, make like a U for where like the top of the head would be. So somewhere like that. And then continue making curvy lines. Now you can color this in if you want. And I'm just going to keep making curvy, long lines, as much hair as you'd like. And I'll make some of them kind of like crisscross and overlap each other. I'm going to make some of it come down over my arms. It looks a lot more natural if you make some of the hair come down over the arms, like that, and over the hand. You don't want to cover everything, but you kind of want it to like overlap so it looks like it's in front. And you definitely want like some hair in the back too. You don't want to leave like this big space. And just keep filling it in. You want lots and lots of hair. See, it takes a while. There we go. So you do want like a little bit of the blue showing through the hair, but you don't want too much because then it'll look like your mermaid doesn't have enough hair. So if you look closely, there is some blue showing in between the hair, but not a lot. I made sure I gave her lots of hair and I went down like over the arms a little bit. There's even some touching the front of the tail. Okay. Add another strand right here. Pretty. But you want to make it wavy, not straight. Because hair wouldn't really look straight under the water. Beautiful. So pretty. I love it. I can even make some of it kind of go up this way too, I think. I don't want to make her look crazy, but hair does float when you're in the water. So if you wanted to make some of the hair kind of go up too, it's your painting, it's your mermaid. So you can make the hair look as crazy as you want, because it does kind of float up. I gave mine a lot of hair. Now the only thing left to do is to do some bubbles in the water, and you don't have to do this part. So I'm going to rinse my brush. Maybe I have some clean ones. I'm just going to grab a clean one so I don't have to rinse. And I'm going to grab some clean white paint. And if your blue lines are dry, you can add some bubbles. So here's how you add bubbles. So you make a big circle like that with white paint. And then you put like a little curve inside of it. Can you see how I did that? So make these pretty big. If not, it's hard to do. So I'm making a circle. And then I'm going to go back and add like a little curve inside. And you can add as many or as little as you'd like, okay? Perfect. Add one down here. So I'm just kind of going around and I'm filling in my background. Ooh, it's stuck on my hair again. With some bubbles. Beautiful. Okay? You don't want to add too many. I just added a few here and there. And then maybe we're gonna add some details to our starfish so it's not so plain, okay? So I'm gonna grab some white paint and I'm gonna dip my back of my brush, I was gonna say, not the bristles. We're gonna dip the back of the brush into some white paint and I'm gonna add some dots so it looks like those little plunger things, little sucky things, little suckers, and just kind of make white dots on my starfish. There we go. So that kind of looks cool. I like that. It gives your starfish some more detail. Okay. Also, you know what I think I'm going to do? I think I'm going to add more green to the bottom. Not more seaweed. I'm just going to kind of paint the bottom edge green. So I'm going to grab some more of this color that I used for the seaweed. Perfect. I'm going to dry my brush. A lot of cleaning and drying. And then I'm just going to take that green that I used for my seaweed. And I think I'm just going to paint a little bit of this area on the bottom. And again, you don't have to do this, but it is an option so you can see what it looks like. And if you don't like it, you don't have to do it. So I'm going to hold it up when I'm done. I just added a little bit of green to the bottom edge here, right underneath the seaweed. Okay? There we go. I think that looks better, but that's up to you. You can do your background however you want. Perfect. So now what I recommend is you let this painting dry for at least like 30 minutes or a half hour, same thing, okay? Leave it alone, go have dinner, go do something else, let your painting completely dry, and then when it's dry, you can go back with a black marker, make sure it's a permanent marker, and you can outline things like her eyes, her lips, her nose, her belly button. You can go back to your shells and add those little lines in the shells that we had that are probably covered up right now. You could outline her tail. You could outline whatever you'd like. You could outline your starfish. But I just recommend that you wait at least 30 minutes, let this dry, and then you can go back to it and trace everything with a marker, okay? So I'm going to let mine dry. I'm going to do the same thing. And when it's done, I'm going to post a picture, okay? So this is going to be saved in the photos section of the group. So if you tuned in late or it was a little bit too quick for you, you can go back anytime, any day and watch this. And if you can't find it for some reason or you can't find any other of my videos, just message me and I'll kind of walk you through, okay? I hope you guys have a good night. Thank you so much for watching. Bye-bye.